Welcome back. Welcome back to Living in Mexico. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this week. And it's been, I know many of you, I hope, had the opportunity to rest. I know many of you had the opportunity to rest even maybe for 2 weeks. I mean, that's one of the interesting and fascinating things about living in Mexico is that Easter holiday or the Easter week is literally 2 weeks off for a big percentage of schools in Mexico. So they get 2 weeks off. And now we are at the final part of those 2 weeks, holiday weeks, Easter weeks, and now we have May. And as you know, in May, there's a whole set of holidays. There's May 1st, there is May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, there is May 15th, Teacher's Day. We also have April 30th, which is Children's Day. So basically, I'm gonna I have a sense that we're gonna have a lot more other days to celebrate different aspects of our life, but still politics is moving and moving very fast. And I have to remind you that June 1st, we are going to have elections in Mexico. And for those of you who've been not following this or who are joining us for the first time, on June 1st, we're going to have historical elections in Mexico to elect judges, including Supreme Court justices. This is new. There some similarities of how judges are elected in different parts of the world, including the United States, where at the local level you have some judges are elected, but not in the scope and not the level that we see in Mexico. And it's a very interesting experiment. So just to kind of give us a sense where we are with this process, since we are a little bit over 30 days. It's June 1st is when elections are supposed to take place. Just to kind of give a sense where we are and what some of the big issues that have arisen in the last couple of weeks. Joining us once again is Benito Nacif. You all know him well if you've been joining us throughout the years. He's a former member of the National Electoral Institute, and he has done a really good job, Dr. Benito Nacif, of he's been doing an incredible job in trying to help us understand where we are. Benito, welcome to the show. 30, almost more, about 35 days away from elections in Mexico. If you just once again put into context what's at stake? Welcome to Living in Mexico.
Hi, Ana Maria. Thank you for the honor of the invitation. Yes, we are 36 days. To election day, which is going to be the 1st of June. And we used to say at INE that we were organizing the largest election in Mexican history.
I remember that.
Considering the number of offices that were going to be filled. But we kept saying, well, the next election is going to be larger.
Right.
And this is the largest ever.
Well, give us numbers. Just explain to our audience.
Just at the federal level, we are going to elect 881 offices and judicial offices. We're talking about 9 Supreme Justices, 2 electoral justices of the High Court, 5 discipline justices, which is the new control organ within the judicial power, and 15 regional electoral magistrates, 464 court magistrates of the electoral of the Supreme of the judicial power, and 386 um, uh, district judges. So it is the largest number of elective offices at the federal level. And at the local level, we're going to have elections in 17 out of the 32 states. So this is a huge election.
Well, just give us an example what these ballots are going to look like. I know we've spoken about this before.
Yeah.
But I think we really need to, these are not normal ballots. Like, for example, uh, for the election of Supreme Court justices,
Mm-hmm.
which in many ways is like, I think it's the shortest list, I believe. I think it is. But just describe to our audience what what these ballots
Yeah.
look like.
Well, it is not the shortest because we are going to elect 9 of Supreme Justices, and for that election, we are going to have to choose 5 women and 4 men out of a list of 64 candidates, 33 women and 31 men. Uh, uh, this is a complex decision.
But I think we have not underlined sufficiently also the whole gender issue in terms of these are also elections where clearly the the election is focused in having kind of gender equality, which is established by the Constitution. The this reform actually required gender equality. So there's a list of men and there's a list of women, and we know that we're going to be 5 women and 4 men on the Supreme Court that are going to be elected because that's the way it was decided. I mean, that in itself, you can imagine for lawyers or those of us who've been following justice reforms around the world, that's actually incredible. Just that in itself, right?
Yeah.
In addition that there's elections.
And the act of voting itself is going to be quite different,
Yes.
something the Mexican electorate is not familiar with.
Yeah.
The ballot is going to be a list of women candidates and men candidates, or male and female candidates. And instead of taking one candidate, you have to look up the number, and that number, in order to vote, you have to write it down on a special place on top of the ballot.
On the box. See,
On
I
the
did not know
box.
that. So you actually, it's not that you cross out a name like
Exactly.
it is in elections all over the world most of the time, or a party. You actually have to look for the name, right? And some of these lists have, I don't know, 80 people.
Yeah.
I mean, yes. So you have to look for the name and then you look for the number, right? You say you have to memorize a number and you're supposed to put it, you have to write down 130, 100, 81.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's completely new, unprecedented.
I mean, and I don't know how, people, are the boxes big or small? I mean, I'm just trying to imagine, can you imagine people trying to put in 3 numbers when you've never really done this before and then you mess up and then
Yeah.
and if the number comes out of the box, then is that number invalidated?
Well, those are the decisions that INE has to make. You have to, INE has to draw guidelines for the people who are doing the tabulation of these ballots.
So how many, I mean, there was a big debate as to how long it was going to take each person to vote. And, I've heard different numbers, different times. I mean, what is your approximate estimation? If I'm going to go, I'm going to stand in line. We're assuming that not a lot of people are going to go out to vote, and we can talk about that in a second. But how long is it going to take me to vote for Supreme Court justices, federal magistrates? Is that right?
Yeah,
And then judges, correct? At the federal
district
level,
judges of the yeah.
district judge, and then you have, of course, state judges. I mean, let's just Mexico City, for example. How long do you think it's going to take us to vote?
Well, there is an official estimate of the time
Mhm.
it's supposed to take to cast your ballot.
Mhm.
They say 10 minutes, but I
10
think
minutes.
that's I don't know. It's very optimistic. I mean, some trials have been conducted by INE
Mhm.
to arrive at this figure,
Mhm.
uh, but somehow it seems to me unrealistic. I mean, you have to know exactly. I mean, you have to make up your mind quickly
Or just
about
take a
who are you
list
going to
in.
vote for.
Yeah, or you take a list. I mean, probably people are just going to take in a list with numbers, and they're just going to start assuming that they know how to vote, and
Mhm.
just start writing down numbers in these boxes,
Yeah.
right?
They just released the trial app. I haven't tried it yet,
Mm-hmm.
but there is a trial app that INE produced,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's smart.
it's available for anyone interested
Mm-hmm.
in learning how to vote.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, on the internet.
So there's been a lot of predictions that there's going to be a very low voting participation. Why is that?
Well, experience basically
Mm-hmm.
tell us that this is the kind of elections that people do not understand very well. They don't know exactly what's at stake.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One reference is obviously Bolivia, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
where they elect supreme justices.
Only or
Only,
everybody?
only, yeah,
Okay.
only supreme justices, and uh, and the and in Bolivia, voting is mandatory, and electoral authorities fine people who don't turn out
That's interesting.
on election day,
Mm-hmm.
and they have very very low single digit
Mm-hmm.
uh, turnout rates and effective turnout rates because people do vote, but they annul their votes because they don't have sufficient information to distinguish or have a clear preference that they
Mm-hmm.
could express on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
The other reference that we have is the referendum that we had in Mexico in 2021 about whether
That's
former
right.
presidents should be
Prosecuted. They should be
prosecuted. Exactly.
investigated and prosecuted for corruption. I think it was yeah.
If you remember, the final question, as it was withdrawn by the Supreme Court,
Mm-hmm.
was very confusing. And the turnout rate for that election, or for that referendum, it wasn't an election,
Mm-hmm.
um, was 7%.
Wow. I
And
forgot about that.
yeah, and in 2022, we had a recall referendum
Mm-hmm.
on whether President Lopez Obrador should continue in office or
Mm-hmm.
not. And the turnout rate for that referendum was 17%. So experience is telling us that it's very difficult to attract the electorate
Mm-hmm.
in these very peculiar elections.
So, I mean, I can imagine that because I've seen some of it, just following social media, watching some stuff on the news programs. I mean, there's a certain level of campaigning taking place, and I have a sense, particularly like for the Supreme Court justices, there's been some of the candidates have been campaigning even before they were formally selected as a candidate, because they were on the Supreme Court already. But the I guess if you're a party or if you're an organization or lawyers organization, you are going to try to promote people to go out and vote for your candidates. So there's been a lot of concern that the official party is going to be basically moving people and taking them to vote. What they call in Spanish acarreados, which, as you know very well, in the United States, you can actually offer people rides and take them to, because you try to promote the vote. But here it's illegal to be, taking people and doing it that
Yeah.
way and giving
Vote
them
canvassing,
money.
it's illegal in Mexico on election day.
Well, and also, you basically give people money so that they'll go and vote. And that has been very well documented. So do you think that's going to happen? Do you think the official party is going to be actually doing that, offering incentives for people to go and vote?
I think it's going to happen to a very large extent.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that Morena and its allied parties have developed some sort of technology, political technology, that allows them to mobilize the electorate.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the state governments and municipal governments are going to play a role. I think there are still, political operatives working for the official party are still working on the specific strategies to mobilize the vote,
Mm-hmm.
to make a certain a, a certain candidate or certain candidates in plural
Mm-hmm.
to win.
Right. But that's
Um,
really
it
hard. I
is
mean,
new for them as well.
yeah.
This is
Yeah.
something that they don't have experience with.
See, what's interesting is because there's two objectives here. Either your objective is to make sure that certain candidates win,
Mhm.
right? And or your objective is to increase the percentage of people that go out to vote. So it's kind of like, I think at the end of the day, they're going to focus on making sure certain candidates win, that they're interested in making sure that winning. But in order to mobilize people, unfortunately, the only way it's going to happen is if you give them money, which is,
Absolutely.
or organized crime actually decides to intervene like they've done with other elections and make sure people go out and vote. You have to give them money because in these elections, you can't even take as you know very well, I'm not, they take the INE away to make sure certain peoples do not vote. But here it's like you got to get them out there and you got to and I think the only way to make sure that they go is that you have to give them something, and it's probably going to be money, right?
Yeah. The amount of uh, dark money that it's already flowing and will continue to flow into these campaigns and elections,
Mm-hmm.
it's huge.
So, joining us today, thank you so much for all of you joining us today. Joining us today is Dr. Benito Nacif. We're trying to analyze, anticipate some of the issues that are already coming up as the judicial elections are rapidly coming. We're almost a little bit more than a month away from June 1st. But Benito, so in this case, just trying to think some of the issues that came up just this week, which there was some candidates were identified to have I think the PAN spokesperson said that there are at least 20 of the candidates have been identified to have links to organized crime. They think it may be more, it may be less. The President Claudia Sheinbaum basically said it's 20 people, 20 candidates of how many candidates are they? I don't know. What is it?
For the for federal offices,
Yeah,
uh, nearly 3,000 candidates.
3,000 candidates. So, I mean, I don't think that was the best response, but she basically, that was one of the responses. So what happens then? I mean, weren't these candidates supposed to have been reviewed And then they were supposed to go to this raffle that took place, in which, some of these people ended up appearing, you basically, if you're a candidate, it's because you basically won the lottery. It's not that you were necessarily the best candidate. It was because you passed a certain very low level requirement. And then there was a lottery and you won the lottery. Basically, that's what happened. So what happens now with people that are now clearly being identified with, according to the opposition and to the Senate, the head of the Senate, who said, yeah, we know there's links, but what do you do now? There's nothing we can do. And the President Claudia Sheinbaum, she was not very satisfied with that answer.
No, she made public um, her intention to file a suit to the Federal Electoral Tribunal to get some people out of the ballot because
can you do that?
I don't think
the
they
ballots are already being printed. I think they're already being
Absolutely.
printed, right?
Yeah,
So you can't, right?
you can.
I don't know what the answer is.
Basically, the answer is not possible legally because the organ that was supposed to revise compliance with eligibility requirements, which were the technical committees.
Right.
Each of the branches of government set up a technical committee, and they were going to revise eligibility requirements, compliance with, and suitability for the job.
Right.
And the people who took part in the ballot were the people who were filtered by these technical committees.
Right.
So no one else in the process has the authority to revise those requirements. And finally, the Senate approved the list, that the final list of candidates that was given to INE in order to print the ballots. So all that has already happened. There's no way to go back. To previous stations.
So, and of course, all of these people end up on the ballot because they have, because they won the lottery. I mean, it was literally, and I don't think people, unless we all watched it. It was like, there was this huge, it's like, it's the lottery and you won the lottery. It's not, you were chosen as the best candidates or the best representative, or because you had the most experience. It's
there were two lotteries. One lottery for the judges that were going to be allowed to be candidates because they were already in office. So half of it won the lottery. And if you didn't say anything, you were supposed to be saying, yes, I want to be a candidate. And the other lottery was with the people who were not in office, but wanted to be candidates.
Right.
Two lotteries. In this second lottery, the people who took part of it were previously selected by the technical committee.
This is Fruity Loopies. I mean, this is just like it's so hard to grasp how complex this is going to be. So, what is going to happen? I mean, I can think a couple of scenarios. One scenario where clearly the candidates are violating the rules set by the INE in terms of campaigning. I mean, I think there's limits on the amount of money you can spend, and which is one rule, and two, people. So that's one, and I want to ask you that first question. So what happens if a large number of candidates are clearly violating the rules that have been set that have to do with money and where the money comes from and how much publicity you can do? What are the rules?
Well, there are very many rules. This is one of the most regulated campaigns. It's even more regulated than the campaigns in which political parties are allowed to participate. Basically, there is very little you can do to campaign in these elections. You do not have access to radio and TV ads because of the number of candidates make it unreasonable. You 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 can use social media, yeah, but you cannot buy. You cannot purchase
Publicity. You
publicity.
can't purchase
Exactly.
publicity on like Facebook, for example, right?
Exactly. Only what they call your organic audience will know what you have to say about why you want to be a judge or a Supreme Justice. You mentioned before that some, organizations of civil society, like the
Lawyers Association, the Lawyers Bar Association here in Mexico.
The only thing they can do,
or the universities, Anahuac or something.
They cannot. Yeah. They're not allowed to publicly endorse candidates or campaign for them.
Know that.
It's illegal, and it's a crime in this country because only human persons can not corporations, can participate in campaigning. But the other thing is, they can organize debate
forums, like round tables, forums.
Exactly. Yeah. But they have to invite every single candidate that is competing for the same
position.
Office. For instance, if you want to organize a forum for the candidates or for Supreme Justices, you have to invite and be prepared for a debate that involves 64 candidates. Is that even possible?
Oh my goodness.
When I was having a conversation with INE people about this, well, the only thing they can do is to split the group in subgroups and have like 6 forums or something like that. It is impractical.
Right. Well, I have a couple colleagues, friends of mine, that I wanted to invite them on some of my shows, on my TV shows and radio shows, and then I was told you can't. You really can't. You can't, because you would have to invite all of them.
Exactly.
And so, let me ask you one or more last questions, because this has been so useful. So, what happens in a scenario where we have elections, and it seems a likely scenario where there's going to probably be a group of people who are going to be identified of having clearly violated the elections laws. Another group of candidates may have been elected because they and then they are linked, or they seem to be linked to organized crime, or there seems to be evidence that they're linked to organized crime. And then there's going to be the eventuality that you and I have spoken about throughout the years. I think you and I have had the opportunity to converse for the last 15 years. Then there's these eventuality that there's going to be violence in different parts of the country, simply because Mexico is very violent right now. What happens in all these scenarios? I mean, do you have to redo the elections on the local level if the ballot box cannot be installed? If people are found to have direct links with organized crime, do you have to, after they're elected, then they're eliminated, and then the second person with the number of votes comes in and takes his place? I mean, I'm having a lot of trouble wrapping my mind around this, Benito, Nacif.
Well, one of the characteristics of this election is uncertainty. I mean, you are not the only one who
right.
is um, in anxiety about
Right.
possible scenarios. I mean,
Right.
even if you speak to people at INE, they say, we don't know what's going to happen. And they've been organizing um, this election step by step.
Mm-hmm.
And without the certainty of what's coming next.
Right.
And the amount of litigation that's been around this election, it's
Mm-hmm.
huge. And it will be continue, I mean, it will continue to be so.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because, well, you have lawyers campaigning.
Well, everyone who's participating in this election they're supposed to be lawyers. I mean, at
Exactly.
least that's like one requirement that they all have to have. They have to be lawyers. Um, so um, I have so many other questions. Let's do this. I'll start writing down a list, and maybe those listeners and those who are watching us via YouTube Live can start sending us your questions because it is unprecedented. I mean, I'm not going to say that this is going to be catastrophic. It sure sounds like it because people are starting to kind of blame each other. Who's going to take the political blame for something that sounds like it's going to be it could be disastrous, but just promise me you'll come back the next couple of weeks. We have what, 3 weeks? I think 4 weeks before elections take place,
Mhm.
just to kind of following up towards the elections on June 1st. So once again, Benito Nacif, former member of the the federal national. You were in the IFE, so it was the Federal
Both,
Electoral Institute, right?
Ife and Ine.
IFE and INE. You also were in INE. I really, really appreciate you joining us today, and you have to come back probably a lot in the next weeks. Thank you so much for
I should be
joining us.
very happy, Ana Maria.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank all of you for joining us. We're going to go to a break. I'm Ana Maria Salazar, and I'll be right back. Don't go away.